Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
Hey guys. J Foreman video. It's always an event when one of these videos comes out. Super good. My name's Connor. If you're new, the original link to the video, top of the description, preemptive like. Let's watch.
Episode about politics.
Weird maps win elections.
Can we do an episode about
Gerrymandering.
Politics? All right, what if it's about politics in a foreign country?
Oh, that sounds fun.
Great, welcome to Map Men.
We're the men.
And here's the map.
Map men, map men, map.
Men.
This is a map of the 435 districts that the USA is split into for the purposes of voting for members of Congress, the powerful people who pick the policies the
So Texas really pops out. These seem like really strange borders. And I don't know if there's any legitimate good reason to have really weird borders like this in certain areas. Maybe there's a good reason for it, but I tend to be more pessimistic when it comes to anything politics, and it's probably just a means of like, I know less populated areas are going to have larger districts because they represent less people. And so as you go into the more populated areas, like Austin, Houston, Dallas, they're going to get more crunched up, you know, like look at Los Angeles. It's a great thing. But the difference here is that the Los Angeles ones, I can't really see super up close. They look like they're a lot smaller, but they don't look like they're these insane shapes. Whereas some of these Texas ones are strange.
is split into for the purposes of voting for members of Congress, the powerful people who pick the policies the president can pass.
Because elections have to be fair, it's important that the map is fair. That's why every 10 years the boundaries get redrawn to make sure every district always contains, as closely as possible, the same number of people, about 700,000.
Which means that this map is actually a very handy way of glancing at population density across the United States.
For example, sparsely populated Wyoming has just one district and just one representative.
Wow.
And densely populated New York...
I didn't know that. So, Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota are the only states that have just one district. It's the whole state.
Populated Wyoming has just one district and just one representative. Hello. And densely populated New York has 26. Hello.
That makes sense, but if you zoom in, some of it doesn't make sense. Lots of districts have very suspicious-looking shapes.
Buh? Guh?
Fn?
Do districts really have to be so fn just to get the populations equal?
Nope, there's something more sinister going on.
Yeah, like... This one is so suspicious. Because... Why not just include some of this population in this area and make them more uniform? I'm not saying they have to be perfectly square, but this is just weird. Why? Why are you doing this?
Guh?
Fn?
Do districts really have to be so fn just to get the populations equal?
Nope, there's something more sinister going on. And to find out what it is, we have to go back to 1812.
Xylophone?
Where are we?
We're still in England, but it's 1812.
Shouldn't we be in Boston?
The story starts in Boston, in the office of the governor of Massachusetts, Elbridge Gerry.
With a guh?
With a G, there was an election coming up, and it looked like Gerry was about to lose his job. But his advisors came up with a bill that could practically guarantee a victory for their party without having to win any extra votes. All they had to do was change the map.
But how does changing the map change the results?
That's what Elbridge Gerry said.
How does changing the map change the results?
Allow us.
Okay. I know we're about to learn, but let me give a crack at it, okay? If you can draw a map that contains just the right amount of likely Democrat voters or if you're Republican or Democrat, you know, just amount of the population of likely voters for the party that you're running against, then you can effectively make sure their votes don't matter by just squeezing them in with a slightly larger populace of likely voters for your party, and therefore you winning. And so that's what I imagine it. Maybe
to demonstrate with the use of state-of-the-art graphics. Let's say there's a hypothetical rectangular state with two parties, the Chocolate Raisin Party and the Smarty Party.
The Smarty Party is more popular, obviously.
A fair result that you'd expect is 3 Smarty districts and 2...
Just make this block one big district, okay? Or, no, make this block one big district. Or like right here, they have to be equal. And just give the Smarty Party a win. And then just make sure the other 2 constituencies are majority Chocolate Party.
2 Chocolate Raisin districts.
But watch what happens if someone from the Smarty Party is in charge of drawing the map. They can make it so that Smarties control every district. Smarty indeed.
But, more sneakily, watch what happens if someone from the Chocolate Raisin Party is in charge of drawing the map. They can mathematically make 3 Chocolate Raisin districts and just 2 Smarty, even...
Did you say mathematically?
Drawing the map. They can mathematically make 3 Chocolate Raisin districts and just 2 Smarty, even though there are more Smarties.
Disgusting shrivelly things. But Massachusetts wasn't a perfect rectangle with voters arranged into unrealistically neat rows.
Wyoming is.
In order to achieve their desired results on a real map of thousands of human voters, Gerry's team would have to draw their boundaries using 2 techniques: packing and cracking.
Cracking is when you break up a community of opposition voters and dissolve them into surrounding districts, making their votes powerless.
A bit like giving all your dinner guests a tiny bit of vodka in every part of the meal spread across the evening, so everyone gets very, very slightly, barely detectably drunk.
And packing is when you do the opposite, and pack as many opposition supporters as possible into just one district, making their votes wasted.
A bit like giving all of your vodka to just one of your dinner guests, keeping everyone else completely sober except Uncle Steve.
This is disgusting. Let me just say that I'm realizing how freaking disgusting this is. The person that you didn't vote for, or maybe you did vote for him, I don't know, but is making sure that your vote is meaningless. This needs to be seen as such an enormous violation. Jail time, death penalty. No, not to. Jail. Like this is insane. I feel like this is too nonchalantly talked about. As if it's just one part of politics. It's like, no, it decides everything. And it's so disgusting that you're in a democracy, you're making sure snivelingly, I don't even know if that's a word, sniding, that you, when you go and vote, it doesn't matter. I don't care what party it is that does it, okay? Whoever does it, that's freaking disgusting. And needs to be... There needs to be a new word, not gerrymandering, which I guess is how it should be said, because his name was Gary. Anyways.
Was finally explained to...
Completely sober, except Uncle Steve.
Once the concept was finally explained to Elbridge Gerry, he said he didn't like it and thought it was...
highly disagreeable.
But he signed the bill anyway like a coward, and history was made.
Gerry's team looked at a map of where their supporters lived, and after a heavy night of packing and cracking, this is what they came up with, including this improbably bendy, sort of lizard-shaped district.
The new map caused quite a stir, and caught the attention of political cartoonist Elkanah Tisdale and his editor Nathan Hale at the Boston...
Hey, if they're like too smaller, I really don't want to defend any of this, obviously I'm not, but if there are oddly shaped counties, right? Like this could be a county, like right here. And you just include them, that I guess could make sense. I'm not saying it's probably not nefarious, though.
Political cartoonist Elkanah Tisdale and his editor Nathan Hale at the Boston Gazette. Hey, have you seen Governor Gerry's new district map?
Yeah, looks like a salamander.
You mean a gerrymander? And that's how the process of manipulating maps for political gain became known as gerrymandering.
No.
And then everyone started pronouncing it wrong.
Which is how it became known as...
That's... no. What?
District map. His editor, Nathan Hale at the Boston Gazette. Hey, have you seen Governor Gerry's new district map?
Yeah, looks like a salamander.
You mean a gerrymander? And that's...
Did I miss a joke or something? That's not how it... I thought that mandering... Well, maybe I only think this because of gerrymandering. Come on. Maybe. Okay.
The process of manipulating maps for political gain became known as gerrymandering, and then everyone started pronouncing it wrong.
Which is how it became known as gerrymandering, which was good news for Gerry, who'd probably be delighted that his name hasn't technically gone down in history for this bad thing.
Which brings us back to the present day.
Would you rather your name go down in history for nothing or for a pretty bad thing? But it's not that bad, like killing someone. I'm not saying it's better to be a serial killer than no one. I'm not saying that. Am I saying that? I'm not saying is it better to be a... Forget, I don't know what I'm saying.
Anyway, in a proper democracy, such obvious cheating would have been instantly spotted and nipped in the bud. But due to America's quirky,
Stunningly undemocratic
system where it's politicians themselves who draw their own district maps, gerrymandering very much continues to this day. And it's more sophisticated, high-tech and openly brazen than ever before or anywhere else in the world, and can be seen in swing states all across America.
A shower head, a car with wings, one of those old-fashioned hand drill things,
A dinosaur, a watering can, the shape on the flag
Hey, that one's not that bad. Of the Isle of Man.
of the Isle of Man.
a metal detector, a bale of hay, and
I see this,
one of those old-fashioned hand drill things,
A dinosaur,
Isle of Man flag.
a watering can, the shape on
I'm curious about the origins of the Isle of Man flag because I've seen, I think it might be super ancient, and I'm not just saying it. I think it might, like, because it looks like a medieval knight's leg in 3 parts, but even more ancient than medieval times, of stuff in the Mediterranean having these kinds of symbols. And since the Isle of Man, I think I'm even going back to far, far BC. I don't know if it goes back to the Bronze Age. I'm just saying I like the Isle of Man flag, but I've also seen the tri-leg in this kind of star pattern on a lot of flags in the Mediterranean, kind of ancient Mediterranean, and I wonder if they're linked.
the flag of the Isle of Man.
a metal detector, a bale of hay, a knight sitting on his horse the wrong way,
A rabbit in a hat and a poppet and a spoon. Super Soaker Seahorse Cameroon.
a plume of steam from a mug of tea,
Donald Duck being kicked by Goofy.
a carpet stain from a naughty pup,
A mouse leaning over with a big thumbs up.
snake, dog, bat, dog, snake, duck, snake.
We'll be right back after the break.
We're gonna watch their sponsor. They're always funny. How is this not like the #1 topic for everyone? #1 in the country in terms of like this should be the main thing. It's keeping our votes from being democratic, okay? And it's clearly done by the governments in power trying to stay in power. And how is this not on every billboard and like shoved in Congress's face and being like, this is bullcrap, fix it now? But then like I have so little confidence that I don't know whether like we have to make the standard like it has to be somewhat of a uniform shape. Or maybe we should just have forced top-down gerrymandering, making sure that likely voters are, like, likely Democrat and Republican voters are almost exactly equal in every single county. Something like that. I don't know. This needs to be talked about more.
Hello, is this the travel agents?
Yes, we are still a thing.
Bonkers. I'd like a round-the-world trip, please.
Ah, you want to see such famous sights as the Taj Mahal, the Pyramids of Giza, and the Belgian boy doing a wee.
Better than that, I want to go to Edmonton to watch Spider-Man No Way Home on Canadian Netflix, which isn't available in the UK. Then I want to go to Aberdeen to watch 24 Hours in Tesco on UK Netflix, which isn't available in Canada. Then I want...
Did you guys know that Alexander the Great, or Plato, or Aristotle, are closer to us than they were to the building of the pyramids? I think that's right. I thought that was pretty cool.
To go to Baden-Baden in Germany to get a discount not available in the UK on flights to Baden-Baden.
But didn't you know you can simply achieve all this with Surfshark
Baden-Württemberg?
VPN, an app and browser extension that makes your browser think it's in another country, bypassing your own country's restrictions, allowing you to view streaming services and discounts that aren't available in your country, such as Canadian Netflix from a British computer or Belgian Amazon Prime from an American computer, and so on, as well as providing your browser think it's in another country, bypassing your
Look, there's no UK. Matt Men do not approve of this global animation with a blank space where Britain should be.
Countries' restrictions allowing you to view streaming services and discounts that aren't available in your country, such as Canadian Netflix from a British computer or Belgian Amazon Prime from a Namibian computer, and so on, as well as providing security benefits by masking your IP address and encrypting your data, preventing you from being tracked by advertisers and hackers, all with just one account on an unlimited number of devices, available with a special deal for viewers of Map Men who can click the link in the description or scan this QR code and use the code MAPMEN to get an extra 4 months for free.
Yes, I'm well aware of Surfshark.
I would give so much more money to people I'm sponsoring if I'm a company trying to sponsor someone's video to give so that they give me an ad, of making it funny and fun to watch, because it's so much more likely that people will watch the ad that is on the video they're sponsoring if they make it fun, like Matt Men do.
I've seen 12 adverts for it on this channel alone, and frankly,
I tried to say does and do. I did do.
I'm getting sick of it.
Well, what would you rather?
Sorry.
Surfshark.
Or scan this QR code and use the code MAPMEN to get an extra 4 months for free.
Yes, I'm well aware of Surfshark. I've seen 12 adverts for it on this channel alone, and frankly, I'm getting sick of it.
Well, what would you rather see an advert for?
Crisps.
All right, here you go.
Whether you're sharing a picnic with your family, or you want to give your lunch that extra crunch, or you're settling down to watch television with a friend with benefits, there's nothing quite like crisps.
Happy now?
Yes, thank you. I quite like that.
Still want that round-the-world trip?
Nah, I'm just going to buy some crisps. Oh, and Surfshark. Thank you.
Well, that was fun. But gerrymandering?
Gerrymandering.
Everyone says gerrymandering.
Everyone's wrong.
Gerrymandering has serious consequences.
North Carolina. In the 2018 midterm elections, Republicans won 10 out of 13 seats with just 51% of the votes.
Ohio. Republicans won 12 out of 16 seats with just 52% of the votes.
And the Democrat Party does it too. Mar-I-Lawned.
Jesus Christ, Maryland.
Democrats won.
Okay, that's bad. That's bad. It's bad enough to have like one district in your state that's really weirdly drawn, but every district is weirdly drawn. That is suspicious as hell.
On 7 out of 8 seats with just 63% of the votes.
So then, why don't they just make squiggly districts illegal?
Oh, if only it were that simple. Sometimes a district that looks sillily squiggly has been made squiggly for a good reason.
Counties.
Republican voters and Democrat voters tend to clump together with their own kind, with Republicans mostly in the countryside and Democrats mostly in big cities. This is called self-sorting, and it's only getting more extreme.
The problem with self-sorting is, if your district has no opposition in it, your politician won't have to work hard, and you won't have to bother to vote.
And so, self-sorting, and it's only getting more extreme.
The problem with self-sorting is, if your district has no opposition in it, your politician won't have to work hard, and you won't have to bother to vote.
And so, to encourage healthy, competitive elections, legislators make districts squiggly on purpose, encouraging politicians to broaden their appeal and prevent politics from being polarised.
Competitiveness is not the only good reason for bonkers-looking map squiggles. Take a look at Illinois. In central Chicago, you'll find the famous Earmuffs District, Illinois' 4th, which wraps around the 7th, barely holding itself together with the I-294 highway. Both the 4th and 7th districts are solid Democrat, so why in the name of all that jazz were they split this way?
Members of Congress don't just make up numbers for their party. Each one is supposed to represent their community.
A so-called community of interest can mean people from a certain industry or housing type or education or race.
For decades in America, minorities were terribly underrepresented in Congress. After much campaigning, in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed, which made it illegal for any state to do anything that made it difficult for minorities to get elected.
Which included drawing voting districts that broke up minority communities.
What this practically means is every state is now required to pack voters of the same race into fewer districts.
No one wants it to be necessary, but it's the only way to make Congress reflect America's true diversity instead of its true racism.
Which explains this. This is a mostly African-American community, and these are 2 mostly Latino communities.
Wouldn't that mean you want to separate them into roughly 50%? Even if we go with this race approach, wouldn't you want to separate it into roughly 50% black, 50% Latino, rather than just having purely Latino, purely black? Am I missing something?
So immediately we can see the problem.
You can make districts compact, or you can make them competitive, or you can make them keep a community, but you can't make them all three.
This is, I think, unless I'm understanding it wrong, like one of the many things that America tries to do to be less racist that end up looking more racist. You know? I think we have a huge problem with that. Like, we're so worried about anything being perceived as like racist or unjust that our remedy seems to be more racist and unjust. It's like it's good intentions, but you did the opposite. It's like, wouldn't the point be, even if we go with this race approach, which I think is, again, counterproductive to race relations, I think grouping each other into these categories is only going to have more division. Shouldn't we just make sure that there are different people of different viewpoints and backgrounds within each district, rather than separating them? Did I? What was the original reason?
Of the same race into fewer. What this practically means is every state is now required for any state. After much campaigning, for decades in America, minorities were terribly underrepresented in Congress. After much campaigning, in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed, which made it illegal for any state to do anything that made it difficult for minorities.
Okay. My point still stands that it seems like you're tackling racism with racism, but now I understand what they meant, that there isn't enough representation in Congress, not enough people of minority of minority identity. Again, I think we talk about race too much. People are people. Like that, there are like why is race used as this like ultimate category to decide background and difference of opinions and viewpoints? You know, if anything, like rich and poor would have a much more varied outlook on life that should be both seen so we can get each other than race. Am I crazy here? But I do kind of see the point is drawing districts in a way that is very likely to elect a black person or Latino person, then drawing it that way will ensure more black, Latino, and other minorities will get seats in Congress. I get that. But it just seems like you're trying to solve racism with racism. And depending on the time period, like if it's 1950s, 1960s, like it was when this was signed, I get it. Okay, I get it. There was much more racial division and just unfairness towards black people and minorities. But I think this... Do you know what I mean? I think you get my point, right?
Minorities to get elected,
which included drawing voting districts.
This is
immediately.
Or you can make them keep a community, but you can't make them all three.
That's what makes fixing gerrymandering so hard. No one can agree on which is the most important C.
Which is why all attempts over the last few decades at fixing gerrymandering have produced various amounts of not much success, including, most notably, in California, with the strong support of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's time to say hasta la vista to gerrymandering.
Time to say get to the...
But in almost every case, any attempt to fix it has only made things worse, serving only to highlight how impossible it is to make everybody happy. Since we're not in America, it's easy for us as outsiders living...
Okay, here's my proposition. Just put it in a computer program to randomize it for pretty equal and together and just go for it, maybe.
In a country whose democracy is practically perfect in every way, to tell Americans how they should. Possible it is to make everybody happy. Since we're not in America, it's easy for us as outsiders living in a country whose democracy is practically perfect in every way to tell Americans how they should run theirs.
So, just in time for the next round of redistricting in 2031, here are Mapman's top tips for how the USA can fix gerrymandering.
1. Instead of giving districts boring numbers, make legislators give them actual names. The longer the name, the harder the shape will be to justify.
2. Get computers to draw your districts for you. AI is a powerful tool
Hey!
these days, and the robot...
That's what
know what's best for us. Computers to draw your districts for you. AI is a powerful tool these days, and the robots know what's best for us.
3. Abolish geographical districts and divide the country by communities of internet. The people who share your priorities that need representing in government are all across the country, and not just physically close to you.
4. Increase the number of members of Congress from 435 to 435,000, so each district contains just one street. You can't say it wouldn't work.
And 5. Stop worrying about democracy and just let a dictator take over.
Me. Let me do it. No. I'm not old enough to be president. Oh, I'm a dictator. I don't care how old I am. Just, there are way too many people who are going to be taking advantage and getting weird deals.
And 5.
Think of the Congress cafeteria budget.
Stop worrying about democracy.
Is there a cafeteria in the Capitol?
One street.
I'm mastering the big questions.
And 5. Stop worrying about democracy and just let a dictator take over.
Before we start blaming America's politicians for cheating at democracy, it's important to remember gerrymandering is only possible because voters are predictable. You can't draw lines around how people are going to vote if you don't know how they're going to vote.
Today, more than ever before, people
That's why I hate the two-party system so much.
support political parties like football teams and are less likely to ever allow their minds to be changed.
Much more diehard than sports, I think. Politics is America's #1 sport. Not football, American football, not baseball or basketball. It's politics. It's our most diehard sport over here. And every 4 years, we have our World Cup, which is the election, or America Cup.
And the more this happens, the harder and are less likely to ever allow their minds to be changed.
I blame Twitter.
And the more this happens, the harder it is to draw anything apart from depressingly predictable districts.
In the last election, 81% of Americans live.
I blame algorithms. Because algorithms are to blame, because once you start watching certain type of stuff, you're just fed that type of stuff because they want advertisement revenue. They do the algorithm to find out what you're like because you're more likely to watch longer on things or view certain posts and all this stuff. And I think that's is a huge problem. Not just social media, but algorithms within social media just send us into these echo chambers, you know? Like I find with YouTube, when I'm trying to find certain videos, in the past few days, I've done a lot of videos that are very similar. And then all I'm fed are those videos in my recommendations, and it's harder for me to find other stuff. I think that's similar with politics and social media.
Lived in districts where it was extremely obvious who was going to win, leaving it to just a tiny handful of swing voters to decide the result for the whole. I blame Twitter.
And the more this happens, the harder it is to draw anything apart from depressingly predictable districts.
In the last election, 81% of Americans lived in districts where it was extremely obvious who was going to win, leaving it to just a tiny handful of swing voters to decide the result for the whole country.
It's impossible to draw a map that will make everybody happy, but fighting for fairness is worth the faff. If voters can at least...
The best thing is to make sure if having no one happy is pretty much the same as having everyone happy. Because if no one's happy, then you probably did it right.
Feel their voices being heard, they'll be encouraged to turn up and vote to vote for their real favourite, making democracy more meaningful.
Until then, the American political system will remain an antiquated basket case that enables those with power to rig the system for themselves and block any meaningful progress for the foreseeable future.
Glad we don't live in a country like that.
I don't like your House of Lords. I've said this. We have so many issues, but the similar reason I sort of am having a problem with each state getting the same amount of senators, even though I get it from the beginning of our country, it was to make sure that, you know, states joining wouldn't just be left behind. But I think it's even worse for the House of Lords because at least the people over here, all of them are elected and don't have to rely on any family status or, you know, father who was in the House of Lords and each country do what you want. But I think that's extremely undemocratic, is having a higher chamber that the elected, more democratic chamber, the House of Commons, has to send their stuff to that can just be wiped away by people who are, if not I don't know enough about the House of Lords and electing to the House of Lords to do, but there's a thing in the House of Lords that just seems unfair because a lot of them just seem to be aristocracy or have that background and got into it that way. And it's like making the House of Commons look like just a front to make people think everything is democratic, but anything that happens in the House of Commons, it has to go to the House of Lords. And they can just go, whoop, you know? To each their own. I'm not saying that you should get rid of it. I'm just saying I wouldn't like that over here. That was fantastic. Make sure if you're interested in, was it Surfshark? In their ad, make sure you use their promo codes and links, guys. Love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.